It's time for the biggest story of the day. This is What Made the Cut with JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The College Football Playoff Rankings, Round 2, 2.0 of the year 2025, coming right at you tonight. And we're going to be able to, of course, watch this thing and tell you as they roll out live on the air in just about an hour what those rankings are looking like. Joining us on the program right now, you can find his byline at CollegeFootballNews.com. He is Pete Fiutak. Pete, what's going on, man?
You guys are ground zero for what might be the argument.
Oh, yeah.
Not tonight, because tonight doesn't matter. Because again, do you win your conference championship or do you get to 10-2 at least? The problem is if you're there, that Utah loss to BYU is just a killer.
Yep.
Especially since BYU didn't lose any other games yet.
Mm-hmm.
So if BYU doesn't lose the 2 more games this year, 10-2 Utah is not going anywhere. I mean, there's just too much traffic. And that's where everyone's going to start beefing about from the Big 12 because you're going to have a 10-2 Notre Dame in. And the concern is you all really have to root hard for Miami to lose. Because if Miami wins and goes 10-2, South Florida is going to win the American. So Miami beat South Florida, beat Notre Dame. They're going to get in ahead of those two. Those other two are going to be in. And the Big 12 is going to be hosed with only its Big 12 champion getting in.
So, there's so much to dig into here, but I want to dig into Notre Dame real quick because I think that Notre Dame really matters to both BYU and Utah's chances. Is it just an assumption? Like Notre Dame, their schedule's not great. I know they started out with Miami and Texas A&M, and that's challenging, but they lost both of those games. Since then, their best wins over USC. They're not playing good teams week in and week out. Is that not taken into consideration, their schedule, or is it just Notre Dame, they won the national championship game last year, they must be good?
Well, they're beating their own by double digits to start. So, and yes, you kind of blew away off the USC win, which was by double digits, and there's a real solid chance that USC becomes the 3rd best team in the Big Ten. Because they've got some tough games ahead, but they beat Michigan pretty handily, and they're going to get Oregon coming up. So there's still a chance that they're the 3rd or 4th best team. So that's a pretty good win. And those 2 losses, this is where you have to nuance it because one was in the first game of the year, and could have gone either way at the very end at Miami, and the second one was a thriller to Texas A&M. Notre Dame wins that if they could field the snap correctly. So there is something to that. They are that good. The schedule-wise, the argument I keep having with everyone is who has this great schedule that everyone keeps thinking? Because, for example, I don't think the SEC is all that great, but once you start getting all these ranked teams because they're big-name teams, it looks like, right. Oh, wow, you beat Tennessee. Oh, you beat Missouri. Well, Missouri hasn't beaten a team that's going to play in a bowl game this year. So there's no one out there who really has this great, wow, schedule. Oh, my gosh. So you kind of do that with everybody's schedule at this point.
That's a great point. I agree with you. So what metrics should everybody be weighing out if because the conferences are so big, you're not playing everybody in your schedules, everybody's suffering from that with their schedules. How should we measure these teams when it comes to the college football playoff rankings? What matters most?
By height? No, I'm sorry. You have to. You look at. There has to be some part of this thing here, and the committee actually did a pretty decent job the first time around. And there is some sort of an eye test to it, but then again, your eye test only depends on who you played. So if you're blowing out a bunch of teams, well, then it's kind of skewed. So you really do have to kind of look at, all right, if your schedule is not great, then you better be hammering teams. And that's still my argument for Indiana last year. It's like, oh, well, Indiana didn't have the schedule. Yeah, but they beat everyone 55-2. So you're doing what you're supposed to against the schedule you have. And, for example, last year, okay, beating Michigan and Washington wasn't as big a deal, but those were the 2 teams that played for the national championship the year before. So it's kind of hard to figure out. So it's a tough thing to do when it comes to schedule. But at the end of the day, again, Notre Dame lost really, really close to Miami and a Texas A&M team that's right now the best in the SEC and whacked USC, and they're playing really, really well. So it's kind of hard to argue against Notre Dame.
Let me ask about because we're seeing this like slow motion train wreck right in front of us. You said it, because like here in this market, you've got a couple of teams that are both looking at this thing going, how on earth can you find your way to at least be a part of the conversation? That was part of BYU's problem last year. They just weren't even talked about by the end of the year. And SMU got the nod instead of them. And in a head-to-head, of course, they beat SMU. And so everybody wondered, like, okay, why are they right in front of them? They have the exact same record, and all those things
and
came in.
BYU won in their building.
Yeah, and BYU beat them at their place. And everyone goes, yeah, but that was like 3 months ago. Like, I don't even remember that. It is weird because the schedule matters about when your losses come. But also, how is it that we're looking at this thing, and JJ and I have been doing this long enough, you've been doing this long enough to know that a 3-loss Texas team would probably get the nod over a 2-loss Big 12 team also. Why is that the case? Why is a 3-loss SEC team like a Texas or even an Oklahoma, because I think they're both going to lose a third game. They both got pretty tough schedules down the line. But then the rest of the way, like, we're just going to watch this thing get gamed for the SEC. I feel like we're jaded that way here.
You made that assumption, but I don't think either thing's. I don't think that's going to happen. Remember, actually, the team you're missing in last year's equation is Alabama, who did go 9-3, and actually should have technically been in. Because if you really do, remember how the College Football Playoff Committee does this? They go spot by spot. They argue about the number 25 team. Okay, that team's in. Then they argue about the 24 and 22 and 20 and 18, all the way up. So they have to argue team by team. It's like using the tiebreaker scenario for conferences over and over and over again. And if you did this last year, well, Alabama, yeah, they were awful against Oklahoma, a bad Oklahoma team late, but they did beat South Carolina, who did beat Clemson, and there's no other factors involved here, by the way, who beat SMU. So Alabama should have been in over SMU, and they didn't do it. So, again, if the College Football Playoff Committee at the end of the day, they fall back on, did you get to 10-2? It's easier. And I don't think in your scenario, I don't think there's so many teams that are going to be available here. I don't think either 11-1 or actually 11-2. Let's say BYU goes to the Big 12 championship and loses. I think they're in before a 9-3 Texas is this year. Remember, Texas lost to Florida, so that's kind of the problem.
we do like to bring up that loss.
Maybe we're just watching ESPN too much.
Listen, the amount of times I've had to watch the 5 and 6
ESPN, start there.
Oh, well, no, I got YouTube TV. I've taken a fast, that's for sure.
No, listen, you guys need that kind of a break. All right, all you people with your YouTube TVs. You need a break from those guys, because I'm telling you, it is funny to watch the mental gymnastics that have to happen for some of these teams that they're like, and I think that 3-loss Texas team has an edge over BYU if they get their second loss. You can't lose to Texas Tech twice. And
well, first of all, they haven't lost 3 games yet. The crazier, go the other way here. Texas only has 1 SEC loss. They play Alabama. If Texas beats Alabama and beats Texas A&M, they're in the SEC.
Then I have no problem with that.
For sure.
I have no problem with that.
For sure.
They'll have earned it. You're right.
And you're assuming that they're lost. But you have to remember there's a lot of traffic in the way here. You still got to come up with a third Big Ten team. And it might not happen, but Oregon's not playing great. But Oregon's going to have to get in probably, or USC's going to have to get in, or heaven forbid, if you want Michigan to lose again, by the way, because if Michigan does that again to Ohio State, Michigan's in the Big Ten championship, and they're automatically in the college football playoff. You also need these ACC teams to keep on losing. So the mental gymnastics you're talking about, yes. If you have a bunch of 10-2 SEC teams, yeah, they're going to be in before Big 12 teams. But 9-3, I don't think gets it done.
I want to get your thoughts on BYU. It's going to be interesting tonight to see what the committee does with them. How far do you think they should fall? How do you think the committee will move them down?
Again, remember how they do this. They slot teams in. I don't think they're going to fall terribly far, only because they beat Utah. So, you can't really bump Utah if you're not going to dog Utah too much, you're not going to push them down. Well, they still beat them. So how the committee does this when they go slot by slot, where they go, okay, we got to come up with the 12th slot or 14th slot or whatever it's going to be. They're going to say, okay, is it BYU or Utah? Oh, BYU beat Utah. Then one spot ahead, BYU. So BYU's not going to fall terribly far. But again, don't take too much into it, because it's how you end up. It's do you get to the conference championship? Do you win it? And all that sort of thing. The real thing overall to watch is, where did the ACC teams fall? Virginia, Louisville, because they beat a bunch of these teams here. They beat Louisville beat a Miami. Virginia did have some good wins on there. So Virginia beat Louisville. So, and it's going to be interesting to see where they go, and because where they end up then matters for the metrics. The wild card to watch for tonight, where does James Madison go? Because if you look at how this is going to play out, the craziest scenario is that Duke right now has 4 losses. You look at the rest of their schedule, they get a Virginia team which might be out without their quarterback, North Carolina, which is certainly winnable, Wake Forest, who's good, but that's a home game, and that's winnable. If Duke wins its next 3 games, it's in the ACC championship, and if it wins that, it's probably your ACC champ's not in. You might be getting James Madison and an American champ getting in this thing. So there's still a lot of funky things at play here.
That's why we like it, the funky things. That's what you want. You want a little bit of just a little bit of the unexpected, but at the same time, all the teams that you look at, who are the ones that are like right now, though, and I know it is early, Pete, but who are the teams that you look at and just say, no, these teams are going to be here at the end of the year. These teams aren't just going to be in the college football playoff. They're going to be the ones in the semifinal or fighting for an actual national championship.
Honestly, go back. I think Notre Dame really is that good. I think that's the problem is like all these SEC teams, they're playing each other. So everyone thinks they're all great, but it's gotten somehow lost into the mix that Alabama needed a minor miracle to get by an awful South Carolina team. That could have very, very quickly, gone the other way, and we'd be having a very different conversation. I'm not sold that Georgia's all that great. I mean, they're beating all these other SEC teams, which is fine. So who is it? If you're not buying into Indiana, because they were shaky against Iowa, they were shaky against Penn State. They're not this be-all, end-all. And Ohio State, you can even look at them and who did they beat? So it's kind of crazy in this. I'm really curious to see what Texas Tech would do on a bigger stage against one of these Big Ten or SEC powerhouses. They've got the talent, but the problem is where the belief system lies. And the other part of this, I don't buy into any of these ACC teams. And here's your argument: the Big 12 is, I believe, 6-1 against the ACC. The ACC is just not very good, but again, Miami got that win over Notre Dame, and that means everything right now.
Let me throw this out for conversation. Texas Tech, their only loss this year was on the road without their starting quarterback, and it was a close loss at the end.
Yep.
Is Texas Tech one of those teams that could win this whole thing? Are they a top 5 team? Or are they a contender?
It's not like
they've absolutely crushed. They crushed BYU and Utah. Crushed them.
Yeah, but that's fine. This isn't the NCAA basketball tournament. You're not going to get in this thing, get hot from 3, or have your and just automatically you're in the Final Four. Like, remember last year, Penn State caught the break where they got the kids' table games where they got Boise State, they got SMU, so they got to the Final Four. So give them all credit. But this year, remember, they're not doing that. They're not seeded. They're not automatically going to put 4 conference champions in the top 4. Your top 4 is going to be Big Ten champion, SEC champion, Texas Tech, and probably Big Ten championship loser. And then the 5's pretty strong. So that's a pretty strong top 4. So you could win a game, but think about it. If you're Texas Tech and you are, let's say, the 3rd seed in this, you're going to get maybe Notre Dame or Ole Miss or something like that in the second round. So let's say you get by that. Then all of a sudden, okay, you're in the mix for big things, but then you're going to get a superpower. You're going to get an Ohio State. You're going to get an Alabama. You're going to get a Georgia. So this is a tough road to get through to get to the national championship. It can be done, but you need the right path to happen here.
Pete Fiutak, you can find his byline at CollegeFootballNews.com and get your updates on anything college football related. What is there going to be a shock at all that we could be expecting at some point over the next little while? You brought up the scenario of like a couple of G5 teams or G6 or whatever we call them now. But what are some shocks maybe that the committee could say, oh, no, we were dead serious. We reseed everybody. We reset all the rankings every week, and then some team is maybe put a little bit higher or lower than you think they're going to be even today.
I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to my original scenario where Miami's going to hang around the 16, 17, 18, and Notre Dame's going to be 9. And at the very end, like you said it right on, they take these rankings, they throw them away, and they start from scratch. It's not like we're just going to pick up where we left off. So how this happens in the final rankings, they take all the different parts and then they put it all back together. If they're going to really do this, they say, okay, well, we got to put in South Florida, so because they're the American Conference champion and we're going to put them ahead. They're ranked ahead of James Madison. Okay, so South Florida's in at the 12. We're going to put in 10-2 Notre Dame, and at that point, then they say, well, again, Miami just thunder dunked on South Florida and they beat Notre Dame. So, again, the change in craziness could be Miami could just hover around the 15s and Notre Dame could end up being like 7. And then the last possible rankings, then how'd that happen? Notre Dame goes from 7 to the 11th seed.
Okay. We're excited to see how this thing shakes out. We're about just over a half an hour away to be able to get that thing started up again for round 2 of the College Football Playoff Rankings and this year's edition of it. It's been interesting for us here locally. There's always somebody to talk about, and we'll see if the Big 12 can make kind of a move or if they're just going to be left watching to see the success of Texas Tech.
BYU just went out. BYU win your next few games, and you're in the Big 12 championship, and then beat Texas Tech in the Big 12 championship, and you control your own destiny here. So just go win all your games, and you'll be fine.
That's all you got to do. Just win all of them. Just win all the rest of them. You're fine. Pete, we appreciate it, man. Thanks again. We'll chat with you soon.
Later, guys.
There you go.